Seeing that 0 tick over to 1 has been the most exciting thing all day. How's it going? We got 4 more minutes till we're live. I very much appreciate whoever it is out there watching me. You matter to me so much. Enjoy the atmosphere until things turn a little spooky in 3 minutes. Thank you very much for your patience. Yes, Emmy. Very spooky spaghetti. The spookiest of spaghettis. It is pasta time. And it has hit that moment. It has hit 8 p.m. Today I have pulled a collection from the creepypasta itself. All of these stories seem much longer than I'd wish, but that happens to be creepypasta's specialty. Stories no less than 500 words, or 5,000 words. 500 words. Unless you're special, like, people, that's not me. Today we begin with a reading of The Window, written October 12th, 2014. Just got creepypasta YouTube notification. Hey! This is another section of beings and entities. And this is an old one. The credit is all the way at the bottom. This has been brought to us by Josh H. Thank you very much to Josh H. for writing this lovely story. We shall begin. I was in my bedroom, doing a typical at-home teenager things, staying up late, digging around the depths of the internet, and generally not paying attention to anything other than what was on my monitor. It was early in the morning, around 2 o'clock, and everything in my house was dead asleep, except me. The room was nice and warm despite it being the dead of winter, since we had the windows replaced last week. We had been losing heat, especially in my room, through some old storm windows. But the bitter cold was now kept outside. I don't remember what I was doing. I think in the terror that consumed me, must have forgotten. I heard a noise at my window. Not the sound of a bug flying into it, or the shrub brushing against it. No. This was an odd noise. A thumping sound. Something I had never heard before. I didn't think anything of it initially. Whether that was because I generally believed it was nothing, or because I didn't want to find out what it was. I can't say, but I sat there for a moment, just listened to it. It was distinctly rhythmic. Thup, thup, thup. Only lasted 15 seconds or so, and then it stopped. I shuddered, but shrugged it off, and after spending another hour or two browsing, consistently not looking towards the window, I turned off my computer and fell into an uneasy and uneventful sleep. This morning, after the sun had been up for a few hours and the things that go bump in the night were doing whatever they do during the day hours, sorry, sneeze. I walked to my window and spent a few minutes trying to replicate the sound I had heard. I tapped the window, bumped it with some soft objects, even locked and unlocked it. But I couldn't for the life of me figure out what had made that sound. Nothing I did was even close. I figured that the event had been a fluke, and the day was normal. Until the evening. My dad arrived home from work as the usual time and decided that the house was too stuffy. So he came up into my room and went to open the window. We're in Texas, so winter evenings are sometimes very comfortable, as was the case today. Never in my life before that moment I had genuinely wished to go deaf. My dad forgot to unlock the window before trying to open it, and when he pulled up, it produced the same noise I heard last night. My window only has handles on the inside. noticing that Crash TV may be here. Thank you, Crash, for joining us. Boy, is that spooky. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. The idea that something was trying to get in the window in the first place was spooky enough. The fact that it has only handles on the inside tells me something was trying to get out. Something was already in the room. That is the shortest story today. This next one is a biggins, and if there's something you guys may not know about me, it's I don't really like reading long stories. But I really like spooky stories. If no one else gonna read them, well then I guess I have to. This one is referred to as Tall Man of Bendele, Missouri. Hold on. We're googling that and we're learning how to pronounce that. Okay, it looks like it actually may be... Oh, hey, I'm not the first person to read this. Wait, no. It may be a town that may have been made up. Okay. I just got a creepypasta YouTube notification. I read that already. I do that sometimes. Bendele? Let's call it Bendele. Tall Man of Bendele, Missouri. And someone has done a YouTube version of the hydrates. Oh, I've lost my mouse. Oh no, because of the hydrates. How dare you? What have you done? Ow. Okay. There you go. Now I'm kind of having trouble seeing because they accidentally flashed a light from the mouse in my eyes. Give me a second. The Tall Man of Bendele, Missouri. Written August 20th, 8th, 2020. By C.K. Walker. This involves deaths, murders, disappearance, monsters, creatures, and cryptics. As well as entities. And Rebecca Killing also it was a part of this somehow. I don't know. It doesn't quite specify. I guess they wrote it together. Maybe one edited it. Yeah. We had like Mr. Westcott. Didn't mind when we used to sled his hill on his property, and he always gave out the best Halloween candy in the neighborhood. So when we heard he'd been taken by the Tall Man, everyone was really bummed out. You wouldn't have heard of Tall Man. So let me explain. The Tall Man has been a legend in my town for decades. Those who claim to have seen him says that he is over 9 feet tall, slight and pale, with exceedingly polite smile. My dad told me that Tall Man is a collector. He likes things. Dad says his favorite things to take are sad people, empty buildings, and dreams. I have to admit he's stolen away my dreams more than a few times. When Mr. Westcott didn't show up for church on Sunday, nobody thought it was weird. Then when Monday rolled around and he wasn't at work with my dad, people started to whisper. My parents thought it was odd, but not particularly concerning. But Then the rumors started that Tall Man had got him. A kid in my class even said that he had seen Tall Man in Mr. Whek'ith's house through a window. I told my parents what Jake had seen, but they only laughed. Tyler and I rode by Mr. Whek'ith's place every day after school to get to our friend Roy's house. We never stopped in front of Mr. Whek'ith to try and see Tall Man, though, through the window, like Jake had. We never even slowed down. But one day, we played too late at Roy's. Since we didn't want to bike home in the dark, we called our parents to ask to sleep over. Tyler was allowed to. I wasn't. I tried really hard not to look at as I biked down Mr. Whek'ith's cul-de-sac. I almost made it, but my curiosity forced me to glance back at that house. The lights were all on, and my eyes were drawn to the face in the window immediately. I saw Tall Man looking back at me. I choked in a panic breath and my foot missed the pedals, and as I tried to speed away on my bike, I stumbled for only a second. My eyes could never leave the face in the window before pedaling home as fast as I could. The next morning at school, I told Roy and Tyler about Tall Man. They did not believe me, of course. They hadn't believed Jake either. I knew I had to show them, otherwise they would think I was a liar. We waited until dark, then we biked to Mr. Whek'ith's cul-de-sac. Tall Man was there, as I told them he'd be, watching us from the window above the front door. It was such a tall front door that I thought Tall Man must have been 10 feet high to see out of that window above it. He was almost smiling, but his expression betrayed a certain displeasure. Tyler fell off his bike, saying, "Holy poop, pun." And we did. As soon as we cleared the cul-de-sac, we all began talking over each other in a flutter of panic. I can't believe it. We saw Tall Man. Did you see the look on his face? We have to tell the cops. When we went back the next morning, with more friends. Tall Man was gone. We went back the next day, but again, could see no one behind the window. We began to wonder if Tall Man only came out at night. A few nights later, we sat in Roy's basement, waiting for a pizza to arrive. We decided to sneak out and see if our theory was true. We quietly rode our bikes down the driveway and into the street. We took off for Mr. Whek'ith's house, tore between hoping Tall Man was there and praying that he wasn't. We saw him as soon as we biked into the cul-de-sac. He was still standing there, after all, and this time, he was outright frowning. He's mad, Rolly said. He wants us to stay away. I don't get why he only comes out at night, Tyler said. Well, he snapped. Picture? Don't, I hissed. Stop taking pictures. You'll make him madder. Maybe he's watching us in the daytime too, Rolly shrugged. Maybe we can only see him at night because that's when the porch lights come on and shines right into the window. It was a chilling thought. We decided to test Roy's theory the following Saturday. Embroiled by the obsession that Tall Man could only watch us but never come out. As soon as the sun came up in the morning, we biked to Mr. Wilcott's. We had to get close, almost all the way to the beginning of his driveway. Tyler swore he saw a Tall Man, still standing in the window. I made hand binoculars and squinted at the window for a few more minutes before Tyler said, "Let's go." I hopped on his bike and pedaled off. We caught up to him a few blocks later. "What was that?" I said. "It was Tall Man." He was there, but he looked different this time. "Like how?" Roy asked. "I don't know, he just looked angry or just wrong somehow." It was days before I could convince Tyler to go back to Tall Man's house, and even then, he insisted on taking his teenage brother, Matt, with us. Matt wasn't impressed with our stories at all. He didn't even believe us. But he came anyways, for Tyler's sake. As soon as we got close enough to see Tall Man in the window above his door, Matt got off his bike, started squinting, and stared some more. Got closer. Closer than we have ever dared to get to at night. We followed nervously behind him. Matt walked up to the driveway, and then down the stone path to the front door. We dared not follow that far. Then Matt went up to the porch stairs, right in front of the door. "Holy fudge," he said. Then a few more four-letter words, and suddenly Matt was running down the front porch, down the path, down the driveway, and out into the streets, where we waited. "What is it?" Tyler asked him. "There is no Tall Man," he said, out of breath. "Call the cops, now." And he's right. It wasn't Tall Man after all. We stayed long enough to watch the police break down the door and cut the rotting corpse of Mr. Wilcott from the ceiling, where he had hung himself from a lamp fixtures in the foyer. Well, I mean, talk about triggering. You guys should have mentioned that. The body had been decaying as if it was melting in the days we had watched from the road. Mr. Wilcott had written no notes and made no goodbyes, leaving behind only the sad print of a divorced middle-aged man suffering a sad, well-hidden depression. Okay, this is sad. I'm not sure how much more of this I can read. It was weeks before the town lost interest in the tragedy, and months before kids stopped asking us to describe Mr. Wilcott and all the details. Eventually, even Tyler and Roy and I stopped talking about it. Everyone moved on. Everyone except me. See, there was one detail that always bothered me. One thing that I never told Foley. Or Tyler. It was about the first time I seen Tall Man. The time I'd been alone. Thing was, I'd seen Mr. Vhek'ith that night. He'd been sitting alone in his kitchen, eating dinner. I'd seen something else too, in the upstairs bedroom window. There had been an impossibly tall, possibly pale man staring back at me. And he'd been politely smiling. Okay, maybe it wasn't a suicide then, huh? I'm happy my roof is no more than 8 feet tall, maybe 7. I'm safe, unless I go outside. Never going outside again. Question, this charger has been used for a bit longer, or should I buy a new one, a USB? I recommend buying a new charger. Whew. That was a spooky guy. I thought it was going one way, it was going another, then it smacked right back into the new way. And oh boy, hold up, I need a bit of time to recover from that whiplash. Alright, looks like my hand with big. Yeah, that cable you're sending on my Discord definitely looks like a fire hazard. What lies within the hollow tree? This might have to be my last one for the night. Ooh. But yeah, this one is pretty sizable. Been a couple of years since you had that charger, huh? Hey, how's it going, Liz? Guess who's reading PASTAS tonight? Oh, maybe worth it to go back and watch the rest of this afterwards. I've done 2. This is my 3rd, and oh boy, could these guys get long and spooky. Ooh. What lies within the hollow tree? Above years it came with my first phone. Why don't you replay? You should have replayed. Nope, we are reading. We are not procrastinating by talking about broken phone cords in our Discord. We are reading. What lies within the hollow trees? Written August 12th, 2020 by J. Spazoling, and that's it. Just J. Spazoling. This contains beings and entities, ghosts and spirits, locations and sites, madness, paranoia, mental illness, nature and outdoors, strangers and unexplained, as well as trees and woods, as one would imagine. My brother always broke his new charger and gave him mine. Hold a funeral for it, the thing they Discord, yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the story. I recently inherited my grandfather's rural home. A log cabin buried deep within 100 acres of woodland. 100-acre woods. A picturesque scene untouched for decades, and a perfect dwelling that I am now proud to call my own. I would spend the weekend here as a child. The wooded path crystal clear ponds and hidden meadows where we always a welcome change from the cramped city apartment I shared with my parents and sister. Oh, you put me on those? Hi, how's it going? I'm gonna get back to reading the story if you don't mind. My grandfather only had one rule. Never go near the woods at night. This was an easy rule to follow. Granted, I was terrified of the dark. What I looked forward to most during my visits were my trips to the hollow tree. Exactly half a mile from the cabin stands a large oak, towering over the nearby smaller trees. Its unprecedented height is not the only unique feature. At the base of the trunk is a large cavity, giving the tree a hollow appearance. This inevitably led to the landmark's appropriate name. My eyes lit up whenever I discovered a new treasure lying within the hollow tree. My blue bicycle, a new football, and the dozens of other wonderful gifts I found throughout my formative years. Grandfather never admitted to putting the toys in the hollowed tree. A gift from the tree, I suppose, he would say, with exaggerating confusion. I knew he was the one hiding the presents, as he was the only person living within 100 miles of the tree. I enjoyed the game. I never questioned my gifts from the woods. As I grew older, my visits to my grandfather's cabin were fewer, and upon his passing, the hollow tree remained barren. To honor him, I had his ashes placed on the mantle in an ornate urn. The path I strolled each morning led straight to the hollow tree. I happened to glance inside its trunk as I walked past. Laying on the ground inside the tree were torn shreds of dark brown fabric. Curiously, I carried my feet to the mouth of the carnivorous oak. As I kneeled down to pick up the shreds of cloth, a wave of familiarity waved over me. It was the mangled remains of an old teddy bear. My old teddy bear. The one that I had lost in these very same woods 25 years ago. My grandfather and I had searched for the missing stuffed animal day and night. One of his black buttoned eyes hung by a thread and dangled in the air. The other was missing completely. Dark, oily liquid stained the worn material and left it reeking with a putrid smell. My mind raced to find an explanation of how the bear could have ended up inside the hollow tree. Maybe an animal dropped it. Or the wind? Both seemed highly unlikely after so many years. I reluctantly stuffed the remains into my coat pocket and made my way back home. That night I dreamt of my grandfather. He stood at the edge of the woods. Large snowflakes fell and stuck to his jet black coat. He raised his pale, thin hand and beckoned me to come towards him. I obeyed. The cold wind howled as its chilling needles stung my face. Grandfather grabbed me by my arm, pulled me closer to him, pointed to the dense tree line. I shifted my gaze and stared into the sea of crooked trunks and twisted branches. My eyes were drawn to the hollow tree. Its dark cavity stood out in the pure snow like a drop of black ink on a white canvas. Without warning, a horrifying screech escaped the tree's cavernous mouth. The blood-curdling scream rang through the woods, sending a frightened murder of crows from the roots into the gray, overcast sky. My grandfather's tired, broken voice filled my ear. A gift from the tree. The high-pitched whistling of wind and bitter cold jolted me from my slumber. My body shivered violently. I was outside and in the woods. I hadn't slept walks since I was a child, yet here I was in the middle of the woods in the winter, just only in a bathrobe, standing before the hollow tree. Just as I was about to turn and head back to the cabin, something caught my eye. A small red light blinked inside the tree's dark, empty trunk. I quickly ran to the mouth and picked up the cold plastic object and dropped it into my pocket of the robe. I sprinted back to the cabin as quickly as I could, dead leaves crunching loudly beneath my bare feet. I burst through the front door, wrapped myself into blankets, and prepared a fireplace. As soon as my body temperature started to return to normal, I pulled the object from my pocket and placed it on the floor. It was my walkie-talkie. Another childhood toy. This didn't make any sense. My sister and I would play with them all the time until the day I accidentally dropped my receiver into the pond. I would never forget how upset I was that as I watched it sink. Again, the hollow tree had returned another long-lost possession, and my name was still scribbled on the side. As I sat dumbfounded, the red light on the top of the walkie-talkie turned on, and ever so quietly, a faint noise crackled from that tiny speaker. The noise was brief, a stream of white noise, but just before the walkie-talkie turned off, for a split second, I heard a hushed voice whisper my name. I took off the back panel of the receiver, and just as I feared, there were no batteries. I hurried to the attic and locked away the bear and walkie-talkie in the chest. I decided then to avoid the hollow tree and my morning walks altogether. The dreams continued, the same one each night, my grandfather, the tree, his messages, the crows. I resorted to moving furniture in front of my door to prevent my late-night sleepwalks into the woods. Things were going well, until the day my grandfather's urn went missing. I had just returned from work. I froze as I stared up at the vacant mantel. My heart pounded in my chest. I knew exactly where it was. I laced up my boots, threw on my coat, and started my short journey to the hollow tree. Grabbed an axe from the woodshed on my way. Dark clouds left the world dreary, and the sun was setting. As I approached the giant oak, the unnatural stillness of the woods drone eerie silence around me. I shone the beam of flashlight into the hollow tree. The cavern illuminated and crouched down to peer inside. I nearly vomited. Dark, sappy liquid dripped from the bark. On the ground, my eyes met the blank stares of 13 dead crows, their small bodies severed, completely hollowed out. I gazed upwards, and within the twisted branches I saw a beautiful silver and gold urn. The tree was toying with me, beckoning me to climb into its ancient trunks and retrieve my grandfather. Rage consumed me. Tightly I gripped the axe's wooden handle. I swung as hard as I could. The sound of the blade striking the oak was unbearable. Each blow sent a sound wave of shrieking from the bark. The same shriek I dreamt of each night. Thick crimson liquid gurgled from each gash. I chopped until I could not lift my arms. The hollowness of the trunk echoed and screeched like concert hall. With anger pulsing through my body, I hurled the axe with all my strength, and with a dull thud, it struck right in the middle of the tree. Just then, the branches untangled, and the urn began to shift. I hurried to the spot directly underneath the urn, and carefully caught it as it fell. I held the porcelain vase like a newborn child, turning back only once to see the wounded tree still bubbling its thick, bloody sap. I placed my grandfather back on the mantel. Exhausted, I fell face first into my couch and passed out. The dream was different this time. I met my grandfather in the woods. Only all the trees had been cut down, leaving a sea of dark stumps. He whispered a new message into my ear. It does not forgive. Again, I woke to find myself in the woods, and I looked out in horror. Before me stood 3 more trees with hollow trunks. I still believe my grandfather was the one leaving the gifts when I was a child, but I think something was watching him. Ooh, that one was a little less depressing than the last one. That was What Lies Within the Hollow Trees by J. Spezzalia. Can be found on the Creepypasta website. Thank you for everyone who has joined me. Boy, was that an exhausting read. Oh, spook. I hope I didn't lose anyone there. I'm sorry if I made this too spooky for you kids, Liz. I'm sorry. I hope your kids are okay. Yep. Oh. This is quite lovely. Thank you everyone who has joined me. Thank you, Liz, Emmy, and Crash. I know that you all joined me at some point during this stream. I hope you've been cheating death. Oh, you I'm sorry. You missed it. You missed Don't worry, you should be able to watch it after the stream. I read spooky stories from spooky places. Thank you for showing up, Death. I appreciate it. You all have a lovely evening, and I know I'm late. Watch later. Yes. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm actually enjoying this now that I've unlocked the creepypasta. Thumbs up anyways. If you have not already, please give this video a like and please subscribe. I very much appreciate every single one of you, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow with Minecraft in the morning. Hey, maybe I'll do my Minecraft challenge. It looks like the SCP's one. Thank you very much. You have a lovely evening. Goodbye.